This is my first time back at the hive since the Hurricane Ian, came by. We were very fortunate here that we weren't really affected by the hurricane. It just got windy and some rain. We strapped down the hive with ratcheting tie downs. I made some shorts about that and put them on YouTube, just to let people know what we're up to. But we were very lucky that everything was okay. I noticed though, a week before the hurricane, I tried to get into the hive and just do some regular checking up on the bees. And they stung me right out of the box. Like seemed like they were eager to sting me. So what I did was I put on my space suit, my astronaut suit, because I don't know if it might be the season. Some beekeepers were telling me on the Facebook forums that they believe nectar is becoming more scarce. And so the bees are more defensive as they start to run low on resources. And I've read that before. So what I'm doing is I'm just coming out here already dressed in my suit, and I'm just gonna see how they are. The weather could scarcely be any better. There is a little bit of wind going on. But it's pretty mild. And in regard to being a beekeeper working with a spacesuit on, the weather's not too hot really, so could be worse in the Tampa area of Florida. I can tell you that after the way they treated me last time though, if I start getting stung, I'm putting the gloves on, just because I like to work with them with wearing as little gear as possible. Now this comb is loaded with nectar. It's pretty heavy. I have no idea how that sits in the frame, I'm just guessing. But it's uncapped, so I could tell that they're basically opening this up and actively feeding off of it. In addition, they don't seem to be making a whole lot of progress outside of what we've already seen from them in the past. So I think what it is the season where they basically already had a good amount of resources, and now there's just not much very available right now. That's what it looks like to me anyways. Like I always say in my beekeeping videos, I'm no bee expert, I just like to study up on them, and now I'm trying to put my knowledge into practice. But as far as I know, all that stuff makes sense. So ideally the bees will be really nice to me today, but if they're going to be as aggressive as they were 2 weeks ago, then it's a good thing I'm already in my suit. See, they look pretty docile on the top here. But it was funny how I think I had about the same experience right before I got stung during the last inspection. Like I said, there's a live hive beetle running around on this thing. I'm gonna kill him if I can. At least flick him off there. So that's a good sign so far on that side. There's only one beetle that I saw and he wasn't in a trap. Could also be that this side, for whatever reason, decides that this is where, or the beetles anyways, decide that this side isn't where they want to be hanging out. I did notice one time that the other trap here, which I'm going to pull, had far more beetles in it. We're going to see how that is. Oh, good. I'm going to try to show that to you. Again, I have no idea what's in the camera, but there's like one beetle there. So I'm not sure if that's how long it takes the nematodes to work. I read up on the hive beetles and found that they have a lifespan of like 6 months. So it could be that the nematodes were already very effective, but we had to wait this long to watch all the nematodes die off. I'm going to try to get in here. See if the bees will let me pull a frame without stinging the heck out of me. See if we could even find the queen. I used to, this is what the frame looks like. It's pretty solid, but there's also a lot of little scattered holes out there. Just gonna put this puppy down. Oh yeah, I forgot to puff. I always like to do this. It's nothing official, but a lot of beekeepers believe that puffing your hand with smoke is an additional measure you could take to protect yourself from getting stung. And the bees, yeah, they're buzzing around a bit, but I mean, if this were like last time, literally I took the inner cover off and then bees started lighting me up. So, I'm gonna see if I can get in here without crushing any bees or irritating them. One day, probably I think it was my first day at the Beekeepers Association, whereas attending a class is just to basically hang out with the bees. I don't think we even had our hive yet at the time. I just wanted to be with the bees. The president of the Beekeepers Association was giving his speech, and a little bit of just whatever advice he had for all the new beekeepers. And he was suggesting that now the brood looks more solid here. He was saying that basically Zen is important when you're handling bees. And there's some historical significance to that too, because at one point bees were being maintained by monks in a monastery. Now I really don't see much of a reason to go too deep into this colony. I see some drone brood here, but you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense to go too crazy about every little detail that you wish was different about your hive. Some people will go out and kill the drone brood. Not sure if that's a great idea or not, or how much it even affects anything. I know that drones, all they do is they eat and consume resources, so in that respect it could be something that people might want to consider doing. Some of these bees banged into my hands a little bit here, but I don't think they were deliberately drumming on me or threatening me. As we get deeper into the nest, we might find out that that could be exactly what they're trying to do. Sorry about my high-pitched laugh sometimes. Okay. Alright, so on that note, I'm just going to put this thing back. And what I'm going to try to do is just kind of roll this down the side. Hopefully not crushing bees if I can help it, especially not with my fingers that close to where bees might get immediately alerted of someone dying in the hive. This is where things like this, I think if you have the luxury to have someone to help you with the hive, I think it's really valuable to have someone just to puff smoke when you need it, to get the bees out of the way, to block the attack pheromone from being received. Yeah, I don't mean to speak too soon, but so far these bees, they're just reacting like any bee should if their hive's being taken apart, but they're not freaking out. And well, that bee just banged into my hand, so I might find out here that I'm wrong. But Excuse me, ladies. I remember when I first put the nuke inside this hive box. As you can see there, I always like to show you guys all the bees checking out my hands. Try and puff these guys out of the way so that I crush as few bees as possible. Watch out, buddy. Yeah, I have a fun nickname for them. I call them buzz buddies, because they're our buddies and they buzz. I actually found out that the wax worms, which are the wax moth larvae that we don't like in beekeeping, they actually break down the most common plastic that we use into smaller particles that are more like recyclable and reusable. And there's other creatures as well that are basically adapting to break down plastics. So most beekeepers have to fight off wax moths, and I don't know if anybody is ever 100% effective at just keeping them completely away from their hive. Therefore, even if you're doing your best to get rid of wax moths and make sure your bees don't have them, every beehive is in a way contributing to breaking down plastics so that they don't harm the environment so much. Now today was an experiment because I was just curious if I was going to get mauled by these bees immediately upon opening the lid like they did before. But today it seems like I could have just went into the hive with my normal gear, just my veil and just regular clothes like a t-shirt, and I probably would have been fine. But being that they were so aggressive last time, I didn't want to basically be stupid and waste that time, because if it seems to me that it's highly likely that I was going to get stung, like excessively, then in that regard I should have just done what I'm doing here and just wear my suit. Because it's not helping anything for me to have to suit up. And technically that's just a waste of time. Ideally, the hive's not going to be open very long anyway. But next couple inspections, if the bees are nice like this, I think I might go back to just wearing my shirt and veil because that's more comfortable. However, the weather lately has been basically the only weather that I really like in Florida, where it's cool and comfortable. Even to the point that wearing a suit right now is not intolerable. Or that was my biggest complaint when I would think about wearing a suit. My biggest complaint was that it was just going to be too hot. And in one aspect, it's almost stupid if your bees are very calm to wear all this gear in the hot part of the year, because it's almost like you're trying to prevent a bee sting by risking your life. It's too hot and you're out there in the middle of the day or whatnot, there's potential you could suffer heat exhaustion, and if you can't alleviate it quickly enough, you could end up with heat stroke, and that is a condition you usually won't survive. Alright, so that was the whole maintenance there. Nothing really looked too bad, other than I might want to consider feeding them, just because there's a lot of uncapped honey. So actually that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to mix up some honey and put that in their entrance, and then I'll call it a day. Alright, I'm back with another quart of syrup. And this doesn't have much of a purpose other than just to see how fast the bees want to take it down, because as we've seen, the honey was uncapped, and so that's a sign that they're eating it and they're not really storing it. So it might just be a good idea to start giving them syrup and see how fast they take it down. Hopefully they can find enough resources out there that I won't have to feed them a whole lot, because they can actually get expensive if they can't find resources too well. Alright, well that's it.